of those things, pretty or prettiest, yeah? So older sisters, and there's a younger sister. So I'm not trying to teach them, but I want these things to be another supplementation for them to understand what's going on. So there was two sisters, the older sister and a younger sister. The older sister was very, very rich. She had lots of money. Okay, I don't just say she was rich. I say she had lots of money. And I say, the story doesn't say it, but I said, she lived in a big house. Okay, big house means rich people. Big house. She was married to, of course, she was married to a rich man. She had a rich husband. See, I introduced this husband here. See, I don't care if they understand it or they catch it, I just say it. Because they might remember. They might not remember, but I'm going to just say it anyway. Because the key is a rich input. See, it's not just a comprehensible input, but the rich input. Because, like he said, there are lots and lots of different eyes here. I hear. There are a lot of people, different students have different eye, yeah, comprehension levels, and therefore I need to throw a wide net. That's why I'm doing this, okay? And so she was married to a husband. He was very rich. They lived in a very, very big house, but they had no children. Okay, so I write down no children. It's very interesting because in Japan, the students learn about they had no children or they did not have any children. They learn the difference between no equals not any type of thing. And so it's also, I think, it's very good for a non-native speaker to do this, because non-native speaker like I know exactly what they have to go through when they are doing a junior high school grammar classes. Okay, and so the older sister had no children. Okay, no children, and I write it down so that if they didn't understand when he heard it, but they will understand it when they read it. Because I sometimes have a student who has a hearing problem in the classroom. And so, the younger sister was married to a man, and he was a very, very nice man, but he was very, very poor. He had very little money. See, again, this is another grammar rule that my Japanese students must learn. There's a difference between a little money and little money. Yeah, so I say, this poor husband had very little money. Now, they had 5 children. 5 years old, 4 years old, 3 years old, 2 years old, and 1 year old baby. One day, the poor husband died. He died. So the woman became a widow. See, that nobody knows this word in Japanese. Japanese kids don't know this word, widow. And I say, this is not a window, it's widow, okay? So I say, widow means a woman who lost her husband is a widow. See, this, I am explaining this. So the story listening is not just telling stories. It's explanation, okay? Like Dr. Krasner told me, teacher is a dictionary. Teacher is an illustrated dictionary. Teacher is a commentator, okay? And so the story listening teacher. And so she is a widow. Okay. Now, he died. He died means she had very little money. Very little money means very little food. That means children were hungry. They were hungry all the time, and they cried. Mommy, mommy, hungry, hungry, they cried. The woman, the widow, I repeat, the widow didn't know what to do. One day, because it was necessary, because she had to feed the children, because the children were suffer. It's a difficult word. They were suffering hunger. Not just hunger, but they were suffering greatest hunger. Here comes a superlative. They are suffering the greatest hunger. So it was necessary for the younger woman to ask for help. she went to the older sister's house and she knocked on the door. The door opened. The older sister came out and she said, "What do you want?" The younger sister bowed. She bowed. The word like this doesn't come in the text, but I just introduce it because Japanese people bow. And so she bowed and she said, "Sister, I came here to ask you for help. I came here to ask for," this is also a very important phrase for Japanese to know because they can't think of this for a lot of times, yeah? So she came and said, she said, "I came here to ask for help." She said, "What do you want?" The woman said, "As you know, my husband died. I am a widow." See, this is the third time. "I am a widow. I need your help. My children are hungry. They are suffering the greatest hunger. Please give me a mouthful of bread." Okay? Now, this again, students don't know. The mouthful, this is the first time that they hear a word like this. Mouthful of bread, she says. Okay? In the text, it says mouthful of bread. "Give me a mouthful of bread." You know the mouth, and I go, a mouthful of a little bit of bread. Well, the older woman, she was not a nice woman. She was rich, but her heart was hard. Her heart was hard. It was as hard as stone. Her heart was very, very cold. Now again, this as is the phrase that students must know to take an entrance exam. Okay, it's always come up in the entrance exam, standardized test, all the tests. Okay, so the older sister's heart was as hard as stone. Her heart was as cold as snow. I do it twice. The text doesn't say that, but I just added. The heart was as cold as snow. She said, "I myself have no bread in my house." She said, "I have nothing for you. Go home. Go home," she said. "Go home," she said. And she drove her away. Not drove away. I say driving, you say driving is, car driving, but in this case, drive somebody away means go, go, go. Go home is drive somebody away. You explain it that way. She drove her away. So the sister went home. Sister went home in a small, small house, and it was a very, very poor house. Now, the husband came home that afternoon, and he said, "Honey, I am hungry. I want something to eat," he said. The woman said, "Oh, sweetheart, I have 2 loaves of bread in the kitchen on the table." She said, "Go to the kitchen and have some bread." So the husband went to the kitchen and he took a knife. It was a bread knife. He took a bread knife and he cut the bread. When he made the first cut, out flowed red blood. The husband said, "What is it?" And then the woman was terrified. Terrified means afraid, scared, horrified. She didn't know what to do. She said, "Oh." Husband said, "What is this?" She said, "This afternoon, my poor sister came and asked for a mouthful of bread, but I told her to go home. I said harsh words, harsh words. I say that we have sweet words, kind words, loving words, cold words, mean words, and harsh words. I say, honey, I love you is a very sweet word. But if you say, oh, you stink, or you're stupid, that's harsh words that break someone's heart. She said, oh, my husband, my sister came this afternoon, but I said harsh words and I drove her away. I said, drive away. The husband said, no, you can't do that. He said, I will take the other bread, good bread, to your sister's house. So he ran out, and he hurried. Hurry means run fast. He hurried to the sister's house with a good bread. He came to the house, he knocked on the door, but there was no answer. He took the doorknob and he pulled it and he opened the door and he went inside. There he saw the woman sitting, or younger sister sitting on a chair, and she was praying to God. She was pray, it's not play. Play is play baseball. Pray is praying to God in heaven. She was carrying 2 babies, 1-year-old baby and 2-year-old child. 3 elder means older. 3 elder children were already dead on the floor. Dead. They were dead. They were dead. They were dead on the floor. The rich husband came and he offered the bread. He offered. Offer means to give. Offered. He offered the bread and he said, please have some bread. Then the woman said, no, thank you. She said, no, thank you. She said, we no longer, not anymore, we no longer need your bread. She said, we no longer need earthly food, she said. She said, God has already listened to my prayer. My 3 children are already dead. They went to heaven. And then 2 more children drew, and then drew. They drew their last breath. Okay, breath, bad breath, good breath, breath. So they drew their last breath, and then they died. When the sister saw her younger children die, her heart broke. Broke. And she sank. She sank down dead. The end. Okay, so this is what I do, and then when I do this, students say, the first thing they say is, did they all die? That's what they say. They understand it, and that's all I want. Okay, they probably don't understand everything, but then what is interesting is, did I say it right? What is interesting is, sometimes what is interesting is, they remember the words. For example, if I say, what is widow? They always remember widow. If I say, suffer the greatest hunger, what is it? They remember that. And lots of words. And because I sometimes don't know exactly how many words they remember, I do the pretest. mid-test and a post-test type of thing, and then I do a delayed post-test 5 weeks later. And then what I find is that their acquisition rate is a lot better than when the students try to remember, do the memorization on the vocabulary words. And I have found, I can talk to you about this a lot in the afternoon, but this way of introducing language is a lot more, not only effective, but also very efficient. They remember it, because they remember the picture, but they not only this picture, but when they're listening, I'm sure this happened to you too. When they are listening to the story with my drawings, they are making their own the movie in their head. And they have different, you have a different picture, and you have a different picture in your head. And then these words are attached to that picture. Therefore, like Professor Earl Stevick said in I don't know, long time ago, 40 years ago, he says, memory leads to, imagination leads to memory, and memory leads to learning. And so if they can imagine something, that will stay with memory, and memory will lead to learning. And therefore, with drawing and writing and slow speech and clear speech and explanation, and sometimes I say in Japanese too, if they don't understand safa, I will say it in Japanese, kurushimu, yeah? And then they will go, oh, okay. And then I also, this is quite predictable, okay? Older sister and younger sister. And so predictable story is very important. And if some people may have to leave in the afternoon, so I'm going to say this right now, but stories have a many different themes. It's not just, like I said, a love story. There is a cruelty, there is a cruel story, there is a deception story, there is a loyalty, there are lots of, every theme of the human life. We have stories in fairy tale and folk tales. And so every week, when I'm not going to tell this, I tell a story about Princess too, and I tell a story about the very unhappy Chinese woman who was treated very badly in every phase of her life. Something like that, or I will talk about the Japanese samurais, or I might talk about the ghost story and stuff like that. And so, if the students like to go watch movies, Mr. Kaufman, if you like to go watch movies, and then I think the story listening is pretty good, because I may not be always telling a story about history, but then if you like stories, I think this will really work. And most of the students, I was talking to Mr. Kaufman earlier, my students are not, like Dr. Krashen was saying, most of the students are not motivated. They don't want, they're not interested in learning English. They would rather be talking to their friends. But when they come to my class, they watch, they look at this, they are immersed in the story, subconsciously they are meeting these words, and then if I require them to read books, so that they have to they must get a credit, they must get credits to graduate. And so it's sort of a controlled, forced way of having them read books, but then if you guide them to an easier book, then they feel good about finishing the book, and they feel hope about finishing this assignment, and so they will, because it's required, so they will do it. And so while they are doing this, they become self-sufficient very soon. And then with the story listening and reading books at home, this can cause lots of improvement in their proficiency. And as a result of getting better in this language, they do very well on the test. And I have seen many times with my students, the students who come to my university with a TOEIC score of 300, they leave with 800 in 2 years or 3 years. Or a recent student who just came to me one semester, she spent with me one semester. She came here, she came to my class with TOEIC scores of 810. And then she left this program with 895. She gained 85 points in one semester, 3 months. That's phenomenal. Nobody can do this. Yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Is it time to ask questions?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have to say anymore.
Okay. I have a few.
Yeah.
One is a comment, actually. And that is, it seems like the common denominator of